Hello and welcome back. Thanks for watching. Today I'm going to be doing a Q&A, which is a first for me. If you're new to my channel, I'm Deirdre, and this is something that so many of you have been asking for, and so I've got a bit of a list to sort of start me off, and then I'll probably just start talking. But first, I wanted to say thank you to my fabulous subscribers, because as you may have noticed, I finally got over that 1000k mark. Yes, I feel like I can almost say I'm a YouTuber now, pushing it, but you know, nearly. But anyway, it's with great humility that I say thank you, because I enjoy doing this, and I think it's wonderful the response I get from you all, and the fact that, you know, I can connect with people all around the globe. It is astonishing and I love it, and if I can do anything for you all, I will do it. You've got to keep telling me what you want to see, and obviously the next couple of months are going to be pretty well planned out, because as I've mentioned, I'm going to be travelling and I'm going to take you with me, so that I hope that you enjoyed that. But apart from that, just let me know, because when I come back I've got no idea what I'm going to be doing. We'll sort something out. Right, I have the book. I know, well actually I've got two books here, because I sort of scribbled in one and then I scribbled in another, because I write in pencil like I'm 12. Well, 2 might be closer, I suppose. Look, seriously, I write in pencil. What can I say? But coffee, and look, it's been cooler today, which is ludicrous because the wind's appalling, and we've got terrible fires burning out in the southwest of Victoria, not far from Melbourne, which is always something that just makes me feel sick for all of the people involved and the astonishing crews who are fighting these fires. But it's actually been quite cool, and I can get back into a turtleneck. I know, my favourite, Muji turtlenecks. They are amazing. This one is, what, 4 years old, 3 years old? And same colour as the new ones I've just bought to go on holiday with. Right, personal stuff. Get this out of the way. Boring as. I'm a Kiwi. I'm a New Zealander. I was born in Canterbury, North Canterbury in New Zealand, and grew up in Canterbury and went to school and my teenage years in Christchurch. Christchurch is the beautiful city that was devastated by a terrible and tragic earthquake in 2011. It breaks my heart, but that's what's happened there. I went to uni in first degree in Dunedin, which is great. Otago University, one of the very first universities in the world to confer degrees on women, and that was only within a couple of years of it opening, full stop. One of my great-grandfathers came to New Zealand and in fact went to Dunedin as a young man, and right at the beginning of that city settlement, so it was about 1850 something, can't remember exactly, but very early on, and then settled in a beautiful area just outside of Timaru. And the other great-grandparents who came early were settled in Kaikoura. So on my mother's side, I go right back to the beginning of European history in New Zealand. On my father's side, Scottish and English came out around the time of the First World War, and my grandfather, in fact, on my father's side, had been living in Australia as a very young man, or teenager. He came out to be an apprentice farmer, which sort of meant that they were farm slaves, and he in fact took himself up and took off as soon as he could. Very independent spirit, and worked on the Murray riverboats, and then was an oxen driver, drove teams of oxen around the north of Victoria. So I feel very settled in Victoria. There's, you know, his family's been here for a long time. He in fact, of course, after the First World War, he then went travelling the way young men do, and met my grandmother in New Zealand and lived there for the rest of his life. But yeah, so interesting background, and a fairly typical sort of background for a lot of New Zealanders and Australians, so mixed, came from many places. I was married early at university, and then years later had my boys, and I have 2 sons. They are both married. I brought into the family 2 beautiful young women, and I just love them. They are my daughters, and I feel very, very blessed. I'm no longer married and I live alone, and I'll talk about that a bit in a minute because people have asked about that as well. I've lived in lots of different places around. I lived in, obviously, in New Zealand and then in Melbourne. Early on, my boys were both born here. Lived in Sydney and Singapore and back in Sydney and over in Auckland again and to New Zealand. Moved around a lot. Then sort of the thing that upset everything was the various things that happened, but for me, so I only talk about things that are relative to me, I was diagnosed with a very rare, progressive and incurable leukemia. It's about 1 in 100,000. So for the last, let me see, 12, just over 12 years, I have taken chemotherapy daily, and I'm very well. I'm an outlier. It means I don't fit any pathway that is expected with this disease. I'm not progressing. I'm very healthy. I'm very well. I just take my meds, and if anybody else took them, they'd get very sick. But for me, they keep me stable, and so far so good. That's all I care about today and the immediate future. That's all. I can't predict or plan. It's an uncertain pathway, so I just do the best I can in terms of my life and get on with things. So what have I done in terms of my life? Golly, raised my boys, best thing I've done. But I have a history master's, which I always thought I'd end up teaching. I did my training and I didn't like the staff room, so apologies to any teachers out there, but it just didn't work for me at that time. I love the kids and I love teaching, but that part just didn't gel. So I went into corporate life and worked for an oil company, the first female grad taken into the executive program, which I'm very proud of. And then later I worked in banking, and I worked as an investment analyst in banking. I've always worked in male-dominated areas and never had a problem with it. And I know that that's not the experience of a lot of women, but for me, I can only talk about what's happened with me, and for me it's never been a problem. I think I've always been a fairly independent person, and I don't judge myself by what other people sort of think of me, so I'm kind of lucky like that. Then I had the boys and travelled quite a lot with my husband, and I raised the boys. I did some teaching along the way. I taught business communications for a while. I started renovating, and just that was something that had always been a bit of a passion. I'd always loved houses and changing houses and things like that. But we're not talking about interior design here. We're talking about pull houses apart and put them back together again. I mean, yeah, some were cosmetic, but most were gut jobs. Redesign the layout, work the space, make good use of the existing space within a footprint, and work all of that out, and then get it organised, get it through council, get the whole process done, organise the materials, organise the people who would be on site, the contractors. So project manage it from where to go, and site manage in the end as well. I also would of course design the house, I design the garden, and eventually, well, it's all tied into one, but I do the interiors along the way. So that's always been just something I've done. The evolution of my style, which is something I've been asked about, has come about through lots of experience, really. I have a huge visual archive of all of the houses that I've really ever been in or seen in magazines. I have a very good visual memory, and because of that, it's really just like flipping through a sort of a list of resources, and I think, well, hang on, that style, what goes there, what works with that, and I can feel how the space will work. It's like being able to see through walls. I don't see walls when it comes to a house. I see the overall space, like sort of what's under the roof space and how you can move it around to make it work a little better. I just think that's a good use of resources. I think the concept of reusing some of these beautifully built houses of the 1950s and 60s, 40s, 50s and 60s really, and 70s, is a sensible thing to do in this environment and in this day and age. And all we need to do is to rework the flow, rework the layout, the way the rooms go together. They're just under they're walls under a roof. You can always pick up the load, run a beam through, do something with that space so that you can open it up in some areas, close it up, divide it up in others. And you'd be amazed at the space that gets wasted in a normal house design of that era that you can now put to use, and it's great. I love doing that. That's something I really enjoy, and I love the process of making it work, from that push to get it through council, to get it approved, right through to whether or not you will use a particular sort of moulding or trim, right down to everything. How you're going to do the floors, what's the height, do you want to drop down to have a cutout to go into the shower so you can get that smooth run when you tile it, all of that sort of thing. I just love having that stacked up in my head and just ready to go. So I see a building site as a little factory that you just make stuff. You push it in one end and you make a house at the other, and I love that. You might have guessed. I also love the design of gardens and making them work for the place and, they're functional for the environment. So work with the house and the indoor-outdoor flow so that you've got good visuals running through houses. I love getting a clear axis running through a house, and you can see right through from you stand at the front door and you get a clear view out through into part of a garden. It might be an enclosed courtyard, it might be right through to a hillside, but I love that feeling. I like being able to play with light and form and being able to do that. Yes, I know, I get a bit passionate about this. I love houses. So how did I end up on YouTube? Well, I did a favour for a friend who asked if I would be in one of his advertising videos. And the videographer asked how long I'd been filming for, how long I'd been acting or whatever. And I said, never. And he said, wow, because you're natural. And I said, oh, thanks, but I bet you say that to everybody. And he said, you're kidding. No. He said, there's no work involved in working with you. He said, you're made to be in front of the camera. That was very flattering, but what it did was to set off a train of thought, because I was working on developing a course to help normal people who didn't know anything about building, to help them learn to project manage their own renovations or rebuilds or buildings full stop of their homes, so that even if they didn't want to DIY it, maybe they would then at least know enough about what the steps were and what they should expect from their contractors to feel confident that the process was not going to be a disaster. I kept thinking about that and how is the best way to put together a really good, clear course. And I thought, yes, it has to be video, but I didn't know anything about it. So I thought, well, I've got to teach myself to edit. So I thought, right, well, if I film, I'm going to have to put it on YouTube so that I feel like I'm accountable for learning properly as I went along. And if you go back to the beginning, they were pretty raw. I didn't know how to jump edit. I didn't know how to edit at all. I think I did continuous shooting in those days. I can't even remember, but it started out pretty much like that. I was going through a very unpleasant time, to be fair. Not the breakup with my husband, but with a former partner. And that's when I was having to go through all of the work involved in getting the house ready for sale, getting the house packed up and moved and decluttering, and this huge house that I'd just had dumped on me effectively. Not financially, I can assure you, but everything but the money. Clever man, shall we say. And that was how I started those processes of, declutter with me, pack it up with me, go over the stuff, because it took about 3 sweeps to get it done. And I was having to keep the garden in good condition, and I was having to keep the house in good condition, and all of this was going on. So it really did need accountability to do that, to get it all packed up, to get it ready for sale. So that's where it started, and started to grow, and I was delighted. I couldn't believe that people were interested in it, but they were, and so it sort of grew like Topsy from there. And now I feel like it's about empowering people to design a life that they love, to say, well, I may have collected a few birthdays along the way, but nothing's over. So that's sort of how I see my life, and I like doing things myself. I like being independent, and if I can share those skills, I love that as well. Which brings me to, do I like living alone? This was asked quite often, and I love it, and I love the independence of it. And for me, what do I miss? Do I get lonely? No, never. I don't get lonely. I thought I would. It turned out to not be a big deal. I thought it was going to be. It wasn't so bad. So I don't get lonely. I don't find myself loose end, not knowing what to do. There's always something to do. I've watched far less television, for example, since I moved in alone than I've ever watched in my life. I'm always busy at something else. What is missing in my life? This is for real, and I'm going to fix this when I come back from holiday. What's missing is a dog. I really miss having a dog. And a cat. I loved my last cat, but he was more like a dog anyway, and so was the cat before that. But I really miss having a dog. And dogs are good because they make you get out and be social, because I'm that classic extrovert-introvert mix that I love being with people, but I also really like being on my own. So living alone means that I can indulge that side. And sometimes I think, oh, come on, you're becoming a hermit. Whereas if I had a dog, the dog would make me get out, and that's a good thing. So yes, I would like the company of a dog, and I will sort that out when I come back from holiday. Okay, so the final thing is, what am I doing now? Because I'm not renovating at the moment. So now I feel like I've become like a life design concierge. Oh, you need an office designed? Not a problem. I'll sort out everything, work with you. Where do you want stuff? What do you need? How will it function for you? What are your needs? And let's get the furniture, the pieces, let's get it organised, let's get it decorated and ready to go. That sort of thing. Do you need to downsize? Absolutely. I'll help you sort through what your needs for the future will be, why you want to do it, is it a good thing to do? I've worked with people on downsizing and then helping them to do that massive decluttering that comes with downsizing, and I can take people through that whole pack up, that whole sort out, more to the point to restyle their living so that they have something that they enjoy that has parts of the old life but isn't a copy of the old life, because it's a great chance to refresh and to revitalise the way you look at everything. And I think people don't necessarily think that it's going to work, then get a great surprise about how much they're enjoying it. I do also work with people working out design on houses that they want to renovate and sorting out their needs and what they actually want, and then how the house can work in various different ways that they perhaps have not thought of. And what for me? Well, I just want to keep living in a way that I find interesting and that is in alignment with what I say to you, which is to choose happiness, go forward into various stages of life. You will have heard me say I don't count birthdays, I collect them, but won't attach numbers to them, because as long as I'm fit and strong and healthy and can do things that I could do when I was 30, which at the moment I certainly can, I'm perfectly happy. I'll keep doing different things. I'll take you with me into whatever I'm doing. And the next thing is to travel, going off to London and Stockholm. So right now it's all about moving forward and doing the things that I really enjoy and taking you with me and hoping that you enjoy that as well. So that's me, that's the Q&A, and I can now go back to the normal things I do, which will be doing some handywoman projects and continuing to get myself organised and ready for holiday, and then going on holiday and learning to vlog along the way, and you can be part of that. And don't be harsh, because I'll be a learner vlogger, you know, but I'll do that with you. If you would like to come along, then please subscribe, and if you've enjoyed this, give me a thumbs up, share it with friends and family, leave a comment down below, and I hope that whatever you're doing, you're having a lovely time, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.